Okay. Hi, folks. Sophia Botha here. And again, I am joined by Aria DiMezzo. Because Aria has been in the news a lot lately due to her running for sheriff in the town of Keene in the state of New Hampshire.
Well, it's the county. It's the Cheshire County Sheriff. Keene is the largest city in the county, though.
Right. Okay. I stand corrected. And, well, you have certainly been causing waves. Because you're actually running on the Republican ticket.
I am. I am a registered Republican, which is only because libertarians lost major party ballot access here in the United States, right? Which meant that we were going to have to go out and collect signatures. We were going to have to petition in order to get me on the ballot for the election in November. And we were like, or here's this political party that barely exists here in Cheshire County, New Hampshire, who barely has any members. They're all elderly. They're all retired or about to be retired. To be perfectly honest, they're dying out, and we stand to inherit this political apparatus that they have in place because there's no one else to do it. So let's just do that. Let's just join the Republicans and use their party to our ends. And that's what we're doing.
Yes, and the specific reason I've got you on is because there has been, such we say, not exactly a positive reaction from the LGBTQ community, despite we're always told that if trans people want, greater rights and greater respect, they should run for, they should stand in elections.
I would agree.
And, well, basically the response has been, well, I saw one response was, why is it always right-wing trans women get attention like Blair White and Caitlyn Jenner and Rosa Dawn?
How in the hell did they come to the conclusion that I'm right-wing?
Because you've got an R after your name.
And so they didn't bother to look into any of this then?
Well, yeah, exactly. And one of the things I was going to say is that you have actually repeatedly made the point that is partly why you've run as a Republican, because people, automatically just, tick, whoever's got an R after the name or a D after the name without actually checking in on their, on the platform they're running on.
Yeah, it's sad that people on the left are doing it as well. I'm not surprised, right? I'm not surprised that a lot of the people who supported me, when this first happened are suddenly now not so supportive of him based on recent developments. But it's like, none of this is different. None of this is new. I haven't changed anything. Only your perception of me has changed because you couldn't be bothered to look into me the first time. Now, they are upset because I ran as a Republican. I don't know exactly why they're upset. I don't generally frequent these sites, but I imagine they're not happy about me being a Republican. But I'm not a Republican. I'm registered as a Republican, but look at what just happened. Look at the worldwide coverage of this story for this county level race in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire. If I had run as a Democrat or a Libertarian, that would not be the case. And I know that because I ran as a Libertarian 2 years ago, and it didn't make national news. It didn't make international news. It barely even made statewide news. Yes. The fact that I ran as a Republican is a key part of all of this, and it's been made 100% clear. Just about every story about me has featured me, my lengthy article, my, quote, acceptance speech, as some people are calling it, where, I just went hardcore criticism of the Republicans who just voted for me, knowing nothing about me because I'm the anti-Republican. I represent everything that the official GOP stands for. I represent the opposite of that. But no, and I've been clear about that, but they don't care because there's an R next to my name, and that's what says it all, right?
Yeah, and I'd say that if even when people do look into you, they see the Satanist bit, and they go, "Oh, you're just a publicity whore." That's the other thing I've heard from trans. "Oh, you're just a publicity whore." But it's funny because I can't.
I mean, they're not wrong.
Well, no, and I kind of thought, hold on a moment. One of my heroes is Hunter S. Thompson, right? He was very influential on my writing, okay? And he stood for sheriff in, I think it was Colorado Springs, back in the early 70s, on a manifesto of legalizing drugs and tearing up sidewalks. Very gonzo as he was. And it's like, hold on a moment. If we're going to have a democracy, then everybody should be free to stand on whatever fucking platform they want to stand on.
I would agree. The only part of the allegation that I'm just an attention whore or whatever their publicity whore that really bothers me is the just part. I didn't do this for publicity. I had no idea that any of this was going to result from me running for sheriff. Why would I? Why would I have expected this? I didn't. The reason the Reformed Satanic Church exists, the reason I'm the high priestess of the Reformed Satanic Church isn't for publicity, is because I had a mission and I set out to use the best vehicle at my disposal to accomplish that mission. That mission wasn't publicity. And anyone who pays any attention to me whatsoever will realize that. I don't mind the publicity. In fact, it helps because I have a message that I want to reach a larger audience with. And the publicity helps me do that. But it's a means to an end. I don't want to be famous. I want everyone to be free. But if I can be famous or infamous or whatever, for whatever little tiny slice of time that's going to last, I want to use that message. I want to use that opportunity to convey my message because it's the message that I care about.
Yeah. I know you, and I know that you are mission led, right? Yeah. You're not in this for your own ego.
No. No. If I was in this for my own ego, I wouldn't be doing half the things that I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm largely going out of the way right now to piss off Democrats. That's the next step in this, and it is going to blow up tomorrow. It's going to be epic. If I wanted the attention, if I wanted the publicity, if I wanted their adoration or their respect or whatever, I wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. But one thing, I mean, my fellow trans journalist Jane Fay said to me, she said, she said the story here isn't that Aria's trans, it's that she's a Satanist, and I can't decide whether Republicans hate you more for being trans or for being a Satanist. And of course, their vision of Satanism is about, a bunch of people dressed in robes and goats' heads sacrificing some virgin in the middle of the woods. They have no idea what modern Satanism is.
Well, I mean, of course they don't. I think the story here is probably that I'm a trans Republican. I think that's probably because I'm probably the first person ever nominated to a candidacy by the Republicans.
No, you're not.
By the Republicans?
No.
Okay.
There was a trans woman in Nevada.
Okay, well, good. Awesome for her. Either way, it's not a likely occurrence, right?
No, I mean
and I'm probably not the first Satanist nominated for an office either, but by the Republicans, maybe.
Yeah. I think you are probably the first Satanist who's been nominated as a Republican. By the way, did you actually think you would win the primary? Seriously?
No, I went into it expecting to lose because I assumed that most voters do what I do. They go in there if they know the person's positions, if they know about the person they're voting for, and they agree with those positions, they will vote for that person. Like you can look at my ballot that I posted to Twitter, and I think even on my campaign site, and it has like 5 out of the 30 bubbles filled in because if I didn't know people, I wasn't going to vote for them. You had nobody, you had Ian Freeman, you had Matthew Roach, and you had me. Right. Those were the only people I voted for across the entire ballot. Everyone else I just left blank. I don't know them. I don't know anything about them. I'm not voting for them. I expected most people would, especially the, quote, informed and politically connected primary voters would do the same thing. I figured they would go in there. They were like, well, I don't know anything about Aria DiMezzo. I'm not voting. I'm not filling in her circle. But they didn't. They went in there en masse. The outcome I expected with that, the libertarians who know me and the Republicans who know me and support me would go in there and fill out the circle next to my name. I figured it would probably get me, 25 to maybe 50 votes throughout the entire county. That was what I expected going into this. And I expected to lose to a write-in candidacy by Earl Nelson. because this group of Rins was organizing that. And, you know, the rules are that he had to get at least 35 votes and more votes than I would get. And I was like, man, this is going to be close. I may actually lose this to a primary opponent. I may actually lose this to a write-in opponent. That is what I expected. I expected to get maybe between 20 and 50 votes, and for Earl Nelson to get between 25 and 50 votes. Instead, the totally unexpected resulted, and I won by a freaking landslide. I say won, but again, I had no primary opponent. But again, I shouldn't have gained. I'm assuming, right? And I admit that this is an assumption. I'm assuming that the people who voted for me didn't know anything about me. That's not true in all cases.
Didn't you say? I heard in an interview you said that you kind of think that people voted for you because you were a woman.
I don't recall saying that, and if I did, that would have been me misspeaking. I don't think the fact that I'm a woman, cis or trans or whatever description people want to use, would have really swayed people one way or the other.
Might have misunderstood, misinterpreted that. Sorry. Well, anyways, for folks in this side of the pond, to tell them. Basically, Aria is actually really seriously putting her life on the line here. You've had death threats. I've seen some of the other abuse you've had, and we do need to talk about some of that.
Well, as far as I know, I've only actually received one direct death threat.
But you've had your car trashed.
I have.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate. And I have to say this again, you know, because there's no video of the act as it happens, because I thought it took place at my house and it actually didn't. I mean, you see there that the tire is flat, right?
Yeah.
And the video from my surveillance camera shows that I got out of my car, I went inside, and I came out the next day and the tire was flat, right? Yeah. I obviously drove it home as it was going flat. And this is because I have tire pressure sensors inside my car and on each of the tires. So they would have alerted me if at any point the tire dipped below 30 PSI. And it didn't throughout the entire, it may have on the way home, and I wouldn't have noticed because I put a lot of money into that car, and among those is a very expensive stereo and a 12-inch speaker subwoofer and an amplifier. So that's frustrating to me that people think I would do this to my own car, because I freaking love that car. I've installed exterior lights, interior lights. I've pimped it out as much as an ordinary human being can pimp out their car. To think that I would do this to something I was actively working on and improving and making mine, screw all of those people. No one who knows me and has seen me with this car has ever entertained the possibility that I did this, because that's absurd.
Now, don't say the words because of YouTube TOS.
Sure.
Okay. But that's obviously that is an attack directed specifically at the fact that you're trans.
It would seem to be.
Yeah.
I don't like assuming what people's motivations and reasons are, but it's really hard to interpret that as anything else.
But you have taken that back, because you're now using that as one of your slogans. Fuck yes. American greatness.
Yes. I have not ordered the signs yet because, as I've talked about briefly here and there, Wells Fargo closed my account, and they're currently holding pretty much all of my money. So I'm having to work with a substantially reduced budget at the moment and don't have those signs ordered. They'll be ordered at some point this week. But yes, it says that word, and then beside it, it says F American greatness, because I don't want to actually put the word fuck on any of my signs. I want to, I really do. But I don't think it's a good move. I think that would make it harder for me to portray myself as a good person who cares about people if I was putting actual profanity on my signs. Like, I do have the fuck 'em both 20 sign in my yard, but I didn't make that. I just bought it, and I'm not distributing them. I'm not putting them up anywhere.
I'm always curious about this whole. I mean, the United States is supposedly, you know, a constitutional republic, and the First Amendment is freedom of speech. Yet, oh no, you can't say that. No, you can't say this.
Well, it's clear legally that I can display a sign in my yard that says "fuck" on it, and they can't do anything about it. That's 100% my right, and no one will attempt to do anything about it. The sign did get stolen, but I have plenty, so I replaced it. But as far as going around onto public property and putting up signs that actually have profanity on them, I don't know if that's constitutionally protected or not.
Well, I just find it. Sorry. This is something which actually gets right up my fucking nose about the United States. Okay, you have the First Amendment, yet your television is the most heavily, regulated television. Okay, compared to North Korea, it's fairly liberal, but in this country, after 9 p.m., you can say what you want. You can even say cunt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's how it should be here. But I mean, broadcast television is dying anyway. It basically has killed itself, as far as I can tell. We have things coming up like YouTube, and there's Netflix, there's Hulu, and all of these other places that don't have to abide those restrictions. New shows produced for Netflix and Hulu, they can say whatever they want, and the FCC can fuck off.
Yeah,
like, we can say whatever we want. I'm here an American citizen, and I can say whatever I want. I just can't do it on this platform that the government ultimately controls.
Yeah.
And that sucks, but that's one of the things killing that platform.
And I've noticed that some of the terrestrial channels in the United States, for instance, CBS, have launched their online video service.
Yeah, and they're going to successfully send us all right back to the torrents, right back to the Pirate Bay.
Well, I was going to point out that there used to be a show on CBS called The Good Fight, which was a legal drama, and they've done a spin-off series on CBS Access, The Good Fight, and it's now they get to use adult language if they want to, and they do.
Right.
And I once had a debate with a conservative libertarian in America. And it was during when 24 was on television. Now, yeah, I know a lot of people say 24 was torture porn, and I can understand what they're saying, but
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I watched the first series because it was novel, but after that I got bored.
Okay.
It just fell into normal American TV trope land, and I wasn't really interested. But the point I was trying to make was that Jack Bauer can torture this person. He can blow this guy's head off. He can strangle this guy, but he can't say fuck.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid.
And that's the problem I have. It goes back to that quote from Apocalypse Now, Colonel Kurtz. We send planes to drop fire on the natives, yet we can't write fuck on the side of the plane because it's seen as obscene.
Yeah. Well, my issue with it is mostly cultural. I don't really care what the government has to say about it, but I don't want to actually piss off individuals who are just trying to raise their families, go about their lives in peace, not trying to oppress anyone, not trying to vote for the Republicans or the Democrats. I don't want to bother those people.
But on this subject, I know that there was a town, I think it was in Massachusetts, that tried to ban profanity, any profanity people in public. And I know that Adam Kokesh went down there with, I think Ian might have gone as well. And they all just stood outside the town hall going, fuck, fuck, fuck.
Sounds about right.
Anyways, but the point, back to the subject in hand, the point is this is what people might have not known. You are getting some severe abuse.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they vandalized my car. The paint came off due to the works of two friends. The tire was replaced. I'm sad that the tire that I have on it now is inferior to the tire that was on it. They slashed a $200 tire, and the only one they had at the shop was like a $70 tire. So that sucks. But the big damage was the cloth top there. That's going to cost me $2,000 or $3,000 to fix. The rest of it, not really that.
So the response from the trans community hasn't been, shall we say, on the whole, positive. I've explained previously that either, people being knee-jerk and saying you're running as a Republican, you're an alt-right token trans woman, or that you're a publicity whore. Now, this one post kind of sums up a lot of stuff which I've heard amongst trans people about you. And it
Sure.
makes a lot of assumptions. And this is the problem. A lot of trans people have made a lot of assumptions about you. And I'll admit, when the first time I ever spoke to you, I had preconceived assumptions, right? And
Naturally. I mean, we all do. We see someone and we immediately assume certain things about them, but we should never close our minds to allowing them to dispute those assumptions.
well, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. That's
Sure.
the old saying.
But I mean, but everyone does. But we shouldn't let the cover determine whether or not it's really a good book. We should still be willing, even if we judge the cover and we don't like it, we should still be willing to read the book and determine for ourselves whether or not it was a good book. I'm not sure we can help but judge a book by its cover, to be totally honest.
So I'm going to go through this with you because I just think that this is absolute bullshit. So about that satanic iron crap trans woman. Well, obviously the iron crap bit is a reference to Ayn Rand. And
Yeah.
I know you're not a fan of Ayn Rand.
No, I've never read Ayn Rand. I have no desire to. The only thing I know about John Galt is that other libertarians have read Ayn Rand, and the phrase, "who is John Galt?" evidently has some significance that comes from the book. I'm not a fan of her. I think she was wrong quite a bit from what I've heard about her positions. But again, never having read her, I can't really comment on exactly what she argued for. But I don't know anything about Ayn Rand. How did the angry Trenarchist fail in her research so badly that she completely missed the fact that I don't know anything about Ayn Rand?
I mean, Ayn Rand was a racist and a homophobe.
Yeah.
And I don't think you would want to have anything to do with anyone who was, you would be a fan of anyone like that. I know, for instance, that you have said stuff about Ron Paul. And I know most libertarians have been mega fans of Ron Paul, but you've said in the past that, these, racist things he said in the past keep coming up again and again and again. And after a while, you have to say, maybe he's actually racist.
Yeah, I love Ron Paul, but he has a really bad habit of letting people write things in his name that are extremely racist. And, if this happens once, if I had, people writing on my social media and they said something racist, I would delete it and I would fire that person. But this happens repeatedly throughout Ron Paul's entire career to the extent where it's just impossible not to say, okay, yeah, he's either completely incompetent and allowing way too many people to write things in his name, or he knows what's going to happen and he's using this as a tool to express that while still being able to distance himself from it. And that's just the position I have to take. Is Ron Paul racist? I don't know. But the fact that racist things keep being said on his social media and in newsletters that he says he didn't write and that, just had his name put on them, who the hell does that? Who the hell authorizes someone to write newsletters in their name?
Yeah, exactly. And
that's reckless.
And from what I know, it was most likely Lou Rockwell who wrote all that shit.
Probably.
That's the rumor I heard. First off, ANCRAPs are not anarchists. Anarchism is inherently a socialist school of thought. Right. This is where this is the one thing they're slightly right about. Well, in fact, they're quite right about, I'm going to say, because I would point out that anarchism has traditionally been a branch of socialism.
No, individualist anarchism has always existed, especially here in the United States. She's factually incorrect. It just wasn't as popular, but it has always existed. It has always been a thing.
Yeah, I don't actually know if this angry tranarchist, I think she lives in the United States. You see, here in Europe, anarchism's always been seen as a branch of socialism.
Right, and that's largely how it is in the United States as well. But the individualist anarchic schools of thought have existed for quite a long time, for as long as the socialist school of thought has existed. So has the individualist school. The difference is that there weren't very many individualist anarchists. So when the anarchists started making headlines, it was the socialist anarchists who did it, and they co-opted the entire word for themselves. Should I tell the angry tranarchists that trans women are not women, that trans women are inherently men? She doesn't get to just claim what words mean. Anarchy is without rulers. The phrase without rulers does not denote socialism or individualism. It just means without rulers.
Yeah, but I would counter that by saying without rulers does not mean without government. It means horizontal governance.
Also known as self-governance, which is individual anarchism.
Well, yeah, I'm not denying that isn't the case. I'm just saying that generally most anarchists I've known would tell you that.
Well, they're wrong. You can submit to a hierarchy of your own accord. That's not a ruler, that's a leader. That's an organization that you're seeking to follow. And there's nothing forceful about that. That's not a state, because there's no forced violence or coercion. That's someone voluntarily submitting to the leadership of someone else, right? In the socialist school of thought, that's not okay. But in the individualist school, that is okay.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is generally anarchism is based on co-ops. So essentially,
well, not generally. Socialist anarchism is. Individualist anarchism is based on individual responsibility and a commitment to non-aggression.
All right. Okay. Well, look, I'm just pointing out the anarchism I know. All right. I'm not. I'm not saying yours isn't valid. All right. Please don't think I am. As I said, I don't live in the United States. I obviously know something about libertarianism.
Well, regardless of where one lives, I would hope that people would be able to say, okay, this school of thought has existed, and the point can clearly be made that one can have hierarchies without necessarily having rulers. So anarchy cannot inherently be a socialist school of thought. There can be socialist schools of thoughts about anarchy, but anarchy in and of itself is simply without rulers.
Yeah, you can have hierarchies on a voluntary means. Yeah. I don't deny that. Secondly, she mentions a libertarian podcast in her statement. One of the podcasters had child porn on their computer. All right, okay, so we're talking about when...
Yeah, let's do it. Let's open this can of worms. Okay, first of all, there is a podcast of the show. It's not a podcast. It's a radio show that's broadcast on close to 200 radio stations throughout the United States. I find it insulting when people refer to it as an internet show or a podcast. Ian and Mark have put in a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of their lives into making it a radio show on close to 200 radio stations throughout the United States. There is a podcast version of it, and it is broadcast on the internet. But it is, at heart, a radio show, a terrestrial radio show that actually plays probably on a city the angry tranarchist lives in. So that point aside, but okay, so all of this happened because of, we believe it's because we broke the story about how the FBI was running a child porn distribution ring. And Ian, of course, had made the point in the past that a person who is under the age of consent is not necessarily incapable of making the informed decision to have sex. And it's a statement with which I agree entirely. He was 12 years old when he was engaging in sexual activity with an 18-year-old neighbor. I was also 14 years old when I lost my virginity to an 18-year-old girlfriend. I was mature enough to consent to that. Is that going to be the case with most 12-year-olds and most 14-year-olds? No. But we can't pretend like these exceptions don't exist. Maturity is not a result of age. Maturity is a result of experience. Someone who has been through some shit in their lives is going to be able to make informed, rational decisions about themselves at the age of 14. Someone who's lived a happy, comfortable, luxurious life without, parents getting murdered and things like that, they're probably not going to be ready to make rational adult choices for themselves, even at the age of 18, right? And Ian was making this argument that he was not raped, he was not violated when he consented to this sexual act with a neighbor. And I will make the same argument. I was not raped, I was not violated when I consented to this sexual act with my 18-year-old girlfriend at the time. And that was what Ian said. And then we broke this story about how the Federal Bureau of Investigation was literally running a child porn distribution ring. In fact, in the year 2019, the FBI was the largest child porn distributor on the planet. So we ran this story. People started calling in, feds started calling in, accusing Ian based on his previous statements of being a pedophile. And he refused to just say, that's obviously stupid, I'm not a pedophile. He refused to just say it because he's Ian and he's one of the most stubborn people you're ever going to meet. He's not going to let anyone else tell him what to say. And that's all this was. So feds used that against him. They raided the studio, quote, looking for child pornography. They confiscated thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And you know what? They never fucking charged him. They never gave the equipment back. They never did anything. They never charged him. They were just trying to censor us. They were just trying to intimidate us. If they had found, in the 3 years since, if they had found any trace of child pornography on his computer, don't you think they would have been charged? There was no child porn on any of his computers because Ian does not look at child pornography. The allegation is absurd. This was all because the FBI wanted to intimidate us into not breaking news like, hey, the FBI is running this child porn distribution ring, and hey, the FBI is the largest child porn distributor on the planet. So the people that she's accusing of having child pornography, she's getting that information from the actions of literally the largest child porn distributor on the planet.
Yeah, does the FBI? The FBI obviously does that for entrapment, don't they?
Yes, but they're still doing it, right? For whatever the reason is, they are still literally out there distributing child pornography to people. Yeah. If the argument is that child pornography is wrong because it creates victims of children, which I agree with, then obviously the FBI is doing something wrong here, and that needs to stop.
Yeah, I hear you. I would always say that Mark Edge would not have anything to do with Ian if he thought in the slightest Ian was a paedophile.
Ian's not a pedophile.
No,
it's a stupid allegation. And it's perpetuated by dumbasses like this who are saying one of the podcasters had child porn on their computer. No, the studio was raided by the FBI immediately after we broke the story about the FBI running a child porn distribution ring. They confiscated the equipment and they found nothing. No one had any child pornography on their computer. Duh. And if they had, the FBI would have charged them by now.
I was going to say, I remember saying to Mark at the time, I said, look, Ian's an arsehole, but he's not a paedophile. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Jimmy Savile.
I haven't.
Well, he was a TV personality over here. And he, when he died, it all came out that, there were rumors before he died.
Sure.
But it came out that he was predatory pedophile.
Yeah.
Well, I met him twice when I was a kid.
Okay.
I had a lucky escape.
Yeah.
Someone once said a really sick joke to me about, they said, oh, you probably think there's something wrong with you because you didn't try to have sex with you. I went,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to have
That's kind of sick.
Yeah. Anyways, Third, her statement about winning the nomination sounds like her saying, don't you feel gross that you voted for a tranny?
I don't know what I've said that sounds like that, but she could always go to my website to read what I actually said instead of saying, oh, well, this is what it sounds like. Well, it sounds like what I said. And what I said was that they should feel gross for voting about someone about whom they knew absolutely nothing and who obviously stood opposed to their positions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point you've already made is that, people just didn't look at your platform.
Yeah.
So, that, and I think
some people did, and some people voted for me because of that, but that number is very low.
Yeah, I will say, as I said, the majority of people just voted for you because you had an R after your name. Fourthly, is that she is Free State Project. Actually, you're not a signatory, are you?
No, I'm not a signer of the Free State Project. I have no affiliation whatsoever with the Free State Project. In fact, the Free State Project doesn't seem to like me very much. So yeah, there's no affiliation there. I am ultimately here because of the Free State Project, but that's because Will Coley was here because Ian Freeman was here, and Ian Freeman is here because of the Free State Project. So ultimately, the Free State Project is what brought me here, but I've never had any associations with it whatsoever. I don't know if they're fascist or not. I don't know that much about them. I know that they're the Republican side of the libertarians in large cases. They're all about the respectability politics, the looking presentable, looking acceptable, the Gary Johnson types.
Yeah, I think the reference there is that if she's an anarchist, if she's a left-wing anarchist, then a lot of left-wing anarchists think capitalism is fascism.
Okay.
So they should actually look up the definition of fascism, which is when corporate and state interests are intertwined. And the person who said that was Mussolini.
Yeah. I really wish people would stop saying fascism this, fascism that, while completely ignoring what Benito Mussolini, the literal creator of fascism, defined it as.
Yeah.
I mean, he was explicit. And what we have here in the United States today is literal fascism. Corporate and state interests are 100% aligned. We have corporations and businesses now enforcing the laws of the state. It's 100% fascism. I oppose that.
Yeah, exactly. Further is that usually ANCRAP plus Satanism plus Nazi, look up the Anton Waffen division. That's a reference to a far-right Nazi terrorist group.
Yeah, yeah, I remember. I mean, we were at Fork Fest when we read the story about the Satanist Nazi group, or whoever they were, who had one of their members arrested. You could say the same about any religion and any political view. You could say, okay, well, Christian plus Republican equals Nazi. You know, it's absurd. To think that I'm a Nazi, you'd have to ignore pretty much every single thing I've ever said and done. I know, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
Well, one thing I was going to say. Hold on, America is founded on freedom of religion, right?
Yeah.
So shouldn't people be free to be a Satanist if they want to be?
That would be my position.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I just don't know how this person came up with that. I mean, she did stop just short of calling me a Nazi, to her credit, or him. I don't know. All I see is the angry Tranarchist. I don't know if that's male to female or female to male. I'm not trying to misgender you, the angry Tranarchist. I just don't have any information to go on because honestly, I do not care one shit about you enough to look into what your gender is. So sorry for that.
Oh, have you heard, talking about Nazis, have you heard the latest with the FBI? They've lost a whole load of files on Stormfront.
I'm not surprised.
I wonder why. Wouldn't that be because they're the base support for Donald Trump?
Probably. But yeah, they did. This person, they did stop just short of calling me a Nazi. So good on them for that. But they did everything they could to say it without saying it. And I think that's cowardly. If you want to call, good on you for, actually, no, yeah, not good on you. You know what, you stupid cunt? Call me a Nazi. If that's what you want to do, call me a Nazi.
No.
But don't dance around it like this.
No, you're not a Nazi.
I'm not a Nazi, but if she wants to call me one or he wants to call me one, they can do that. I don't care. But don't dance around it like this. Don't say usually ANCAP plus Satanism is a Nazi. Just come out and say it. Just come out and say, this person's a Nazi. Just come out and say Aria DiMezzo's a Nazi if that's what you think. But don't be a fucking coward who dances around it like this. Have some fucking courage.
And lastly,
this is why, Angry Tranarchist, this is why you have like 20 likes and people are liking like one of your posts. You'll get like one like. This is why. Because you're a fucking coward. Sorry, I'm done now.
And lastly,
I hate cowardice.
And lastly, she platformed Christopher Cantrell on her show, and Eva was or is in a chat with a bunch of Nazis. What?
Those are all true statements.
Yeah, but I would say I've seen that show, right? And you stood up to him. He walked out because you stuck to your principles.
Yeah, he walked out. It did not end well for him. It made him look really, really bad. There's like a 3-minute clip on the Free King YouTube channel that, you know, just shows him getting mad and storming out because he can dish it out, but he can't take it. And I'm like, no, dude, if you want to dish it out, you got to sit right there and take it. Sit your fucking ass back down or get out. And he got out.
It's funny how so many of these Nazis are such snowflakes.
Yeah, to think that he got a platform out of me and that he walked away from that looking good is absolutely absurd.
Right. And I would say to the angry Tranan, I can't pronounce it.
Anarchist, yeah.
Yeah, the angry Tranarchist. You know, why don't you go and have a look at what Aria has to say? You know, go to our website.
Well, that would be actual research, right? And the angry Tranarchists, like the Republicans, that they don't actually research things. They just spout whatever they believe is true.
Yeah. Aria is also from the South, where she has seen firsthand the dangers of bigotry, overt and subtle. These biases inform the actions of police in terrifying ways, since they are allowed to exercise discretion in which crimes to pursue and which to ignore.
Yeah, and this is it's obvious how all of this can result in bigotry from the police and the need for things like Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of racism, a lot of good old boys and stuff like that entering into police forces, and they do have the quote right to exercise discretion. So if they see two people who are breaking the law in the same way, if they see a black man doing it and a white man doing it, and both of these men have, I don't know, an ounce of pot on them, they are almost always going to go up and harass the black man and leave the white man alone. If they see two vehicles speeding, it's going to be the trans person who gets pulled over, not Mark Edge. If they see a black guy, it's going to be the black guy who gets pulled over, not Mark Edge. And I say Mark Edge because he uses this example himself of why he's pretty much safe from the police. And he's right. It's because he's just this normal looking 40, I don't know how old he is, 45-year-old white dude. No one pays him any attention. But if you're different, if you're a minority, those cops pay attention to you. And so if they see they may not even see the white person speeding because they just don't pay any attention to it, but they'll see the black person speeding. So this is how their biases inform their actions. They see these two people breaking the law. They pull one of them over. Next thing you know, they're searching the vehicle. Maybe they would have searched the white person's vehicle too. Probably not, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's just their standard procedures. They pull you over. They end up with a canine unit out there. Assuming that both the white person and the black person had an ounce of pot on them, who got the charge that day? It was the black guy. And it was because the cop exercised discretion. He saw two people breaking the law. He pursued one of them. And his inherent racial bias, it's not that all cops are racist, right? But a good number of them are. That racial bias is going to inform their actions about which one of these people get pursued. And it's usually going to be a minority, one of the, quote, weaker members of the population, because police, as they exist right now in the United States, they are predators. What do predators do? They don't go after the strongest, they don't go after the strongest gazelle. They go after the weak one, the one that looks sick, the one that looks like the easiest target. And in the United States today, there is there's centuries of a political apparatus that exists to protect straight cis white men. And those protections don't extend to anyone who isn't a straight cis white man. So as far as they can tell, the weakest people they can target are the LGBT people, are the black people, are the Hispanics, the minorities. So that's the ones they're going to target because like any predator, they seek out and target the weakest looking prey.
Exactly. So I would say to folks with what just Aria just said, right? Does she sound like an alt-right token trans woman? Does she sound like Blair White? No. Yeah?
No, because I'm not alt-right. I'm not a fucking Nazi. It's stupid to say that I am.
I mean, you're somebody who would, you know, if you were elected sheriff, you wouldn't pursue people for using drugs.
I would not, regardless of what those drugs were and regardless of whether I approve of them or not. I wouldn't pursue people for cannabis. I don't smoke cannabis. I generally approve of cannabis but I still wouldn't enforce the laws against it. I think the cat did that. No, okay. And I don't support methamphetamine use. I realize a lot of people use it. I don't support it. I don't think it's doing that person any good. Like cannabis, it's doing the user some good. Shrooms, they're doing the user some good. So, okay, I'm not enforcing laws against those, but it's not my call to make about whether this adult can put the substance into their body knowing what it's going to do to them. If they want to do crystal meth, that's their choice. I'm not going to enforce the law against crystal meth possession and usage on them, because it's not my call to make. If they want to do crystal meth, that's on them. So, and if we get rid of these enforcements of these asinine laws, you got to remember that Eric Garner was just trying to sell cigarettes out on the streets of New York, and the police killed him. George Floyd had a fake $20 bill allegedly. I don't know about most people, but it's really not hard to end up with a fake $20 bill in your possession. They're widely in circulation. They just don't really get caught that much until they go into a bank. So he had a counterfeit 20. Even if he knowingly had this counterfeit $20 bill, he died for that. The police murdered him for that. So if we stop pursuing crimes that don't have victims, if we allow people to just do what they want as long as they're not hurting people, like selling cigarettes out on the street, or mistakenly or unknowingly or even knowingly trying to use a counterfeit 20, don't investigate that, and you won't create a situation where that person may very well be killed by police.
Yeah. Back to specific trans stuff. You're certainly not on the right when it comes to trans stuff. You're not a TERF, and I know that you've in the part, with conversations you've had with me, you've been quite outspoken about J.K. Rowling.
Fuck her.
Yeah, exactly.
And
also,
the only way I will ever consume Harry Potter related content again is by downloading it illegally on the Pirate Bay. That's the only way I will ever read another one of her books, because that doesn't help her at all. Or
right.
Watch one of her movies, is to download it from the Pirate Bay, because she doesn't deserve my money. She doesn't want my money. Clearly, she doesn't like me. She doesn't care for me. So screw her.
Right. I'll tell you.
And it's revealing that almost all of the actors that I'm aware of who have spoken out about this are like, yeah, no, she's wrong. Yeah, she's wrong. Like Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe, yeah.
Yeah. Came out saying, hey, yeah, she's wrong. Trans women are women.
I'll tell you something which happened to me recently. I was watching a BBC box set of this drama called Strike. I thought, oh, this is a dark, gritty detective thingy.
Sure.
This is pretty good. So I thought, I'll watch another episode. And I was watching the credits, and it said executive producer J.K. Rowling.
Oh God.
And suddenly, oh Christ, it's based on one of her books, isn't it? Yeah. I so I had to stop watching. Sorry, I'll tell you
that's the position to take. I don't support Chick-fil-A either, because I don't care how good it is. I don't need a hate chicken sandwich in my life. I don't care how good J.K. Rowling's works are. I don't need hatred in my life.
You see, this is why I love you, right? Because in the past, I've had, encounters with libertarians, and libertarians in the past, right? And I know every libertarian's different, but
sure,
generally, for instance, with something like Chick-fil-A, they would defend their right to be, bigoted and whatever else.
Sure, and they have that right. And I have every right not to go to them and to tell people don't go to them because you're buying a hate-filled chicken sandwich. And you can just go to KFC or somewhere. Don't go to KFC. You can just go to some local mom and pop place and buy your chicken sandwich there, and it'll actually be good. And you won't be, supporting hate.
Well, exactly. But what I'm going to say is that libertarians tend to make a bigger play about, oh, they've got the right to be whatever, blah, 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 blah. But you don't hear them speaking out against, the fact that they're spouting hate, right? Whereas with you do speak out the fact that they are, well, they're not spouting hate, they're supporting, anti-LGBT bullshit. And the other thing is, you're not a true scummer, right? Which is always a sign of a right-wing trans woman, I can tell you.
What is a true scummer?
Trans medicalist, someone who says you're not trans unless you go through the legal and medical process to live as a woman.
No, I mean, You're trans if you go through any process to live as a woman or to live as a man. That's what makes you going through. There's no specific process that anyone has to go through. As long as they go through a process, because I do agree that we can't just have random people like Joe Biden declare themselves to be women, right? I agree with that, sure. But there's no rules to follow here about who is and isn't a trans person. If they say they're a trans person, they're actually living according to that statement, then they're a trans person, end of story. I don't care if they're not wearing makeup. If they're living their lives as a trans person, they're a trans person.
Exactly. I mean, we've heard the whole self-ID thing about, if men will be able to self-ID as women and gain entry with female toilet, blah, blah. But hold on. If a man wants to rape a woman in a female toilet, so nothing's stopping them from doing it now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the most likely result of all of this isn't that cis women would be raped, or even that trans women would be raped. The most likely result of this is probably that you would have some hateful person self-IDing their way into the women's room to attack a trans woman, not sexually, just to beat them and assault them.
Yeah.
But actual trans people are overwhelmingly the victims of sexual assault and not the perpetrators.
Yeah.
And there are not very many men in the United States who are actually willing to say out loud, I identify as a woman.
Well, Denmark and Ireland have both brought in self-ID for trans women, right? So trans people. So I
am whatever I say I am. The government shouldn't even be passing a law about this. Whatever I say I am is what I am.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who gets to define me, not the government.
No,
so good on Denmark and Ireland, I think you said, for allowing people to say, this is what I am, this is who I am. But we shouldn't have never been in a political situation where we needed a law for that in the first place. It's just common sense. I'm Aria DiMezzo because I say my name is Aria DiMezzo. The government doesn't get to say whether or not that's a true statement. I do.
Well, I was going to say that in Denmark, Ireland, and Canada they have self-ID, and here's how many people who have self-ID'd have assaulted women in toilets. Drum roll.
Zero.
Yep, zero.
Not surprising.
It's bullshit. I mean, this reminds me of the arguments you've heard against gay marriage. I remember hearing one argument. If we allow same-sex marriage, what next? People going to marry their horse?
Yeah. People are stupid. And look. Okay. You do you, dude. That's not my business.
Yeah. I actually remember when states started to legalize same-sex marriage. There was one anti-gay marriage guy who was going around each of these states to try and marry his laptop.
That's stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Atheists, as a trans atheist, I'm used to all of this shit. I was hearing it about atheism long before I was, hearing it about trans shit. People are narrow-minded and they don't understand what they're being told. I've been hearing the whole, so you believe that a tornado can just roar through a junkyard and produce a 747 because you believe in evolution. I'm like, no, that's not at all what evolution suggests. Do you know anything about evolution? And so now we have, so you just think a man should be able to put on a dress and walk into the women's restroom. That's what you believe in. So, it's the same type of juvenile, unthinking responses that people have given to any movement toward change that we've seen in the last several decades. It's always that hyperbolic, misunderstanding, nonsensical response that doesn't have any relevance to the actual situation at hand. So the point here is that trans people, or that all people, trans or not, should be able to declare to the world who they are, because that's their right. No, I can't imagine who else would have the right to declare who they are to the world than the person themselves. That's the issue here. The issue here isn't whether or not a person might use this to somehow get their way into the women's restroom. That's a non sequitur. But that's the go-to response when you're dealing with anyone who's coming at you from from the classical worldview of straight, cis, white, Christian, good, everything else bad. So everything that doesn't fit neatly into their already established, already this myopic, extremely simple, this boys have dicks, girls have vagina worldview is automatically bad, and is taken to this extreme degree that has no actual relevance on what's being discussed. And what's being discussed here is that an individual has the right to tell the world who they are.
Yeah. And this is why it's important that trans people should support you, because you're out there saying this stuff, you know, in election season, right? No. You laugh, but you know, you're far more articulate than I am, and you're very, you know, you've got a way with words. You're quite forceful and in a good way, I'd add.
Oh, thanks.
You know. Well, Aria, I do think you are a credit to the trans community. You really are, right? And I hope that you advocate for trans people for many years to come. But there's one final question I have.
Okay.
If you're elected sheriff, please, can you ban pineapple on pizzas?
I'll have to consult my deputies on that. Because the first thing I'm going to do is deputize my cats, but I got to say, I don't think they're on board with it.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, I love pizza and I love pineapple, but not together.
Have you tried it together?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, each their own.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I
feel like it needs something else on the side, something else to go with it, like just pineapple on pizza. It's probably not going to be good, but.
All right. Well, I will stick all your social media and your campaign website in the links below. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll have a bit of a chat afterwards. This is Sophia signing off until the next time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.